Hello, everyone. I'm Reverend Nick Bullitt, the engagement catalyst here at One Spirit, and I am sitting here today with Victoria Price, and we're here to speak about her upcoming workshop. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
I'm great. Thanks for doing this. And
Sure.
this is Allie.
Hi, Allie. So, we would love to hear a little bit about your professional as well as spiritual background.
Sure. I graduated from One Spirit in 2016, and I did the 3-year program. I went for a whole year, got to within, I don't know, a month of the intensive, and I realized that I had really done the entire program in my head. And that wasn't why I wanted to go to One Spirit. I really wanted to shift out of my head and being this workaholic and into my heart. So I took a year off, and in that year, a lot of things began to shift for me. And this ties into the workshop because what I realized was I was a workaholic. And workaholism is sort of the sanctioned addiction because of the great American value of work. But if you're using work as a way to buffer getting deep and dirty with what you need to heal spiritually or even look at spiritually, then it's an addiction, same as anything else. It's a distraction. It's a way of sort of pushing the hard stuff away. And so in that year, I really made a commitment to shift that. And I came back to One Spirit. And during that time, I began writing a blog called Daily Practice of Joy. I knew that joy was really the way that I got out of my head and into my heart, but committing to practice it every day and blog about it once a week, all the failures, all the foibles, all the ways I tried to avoid it, all the screw ups, and all the joy and success and connection, that was really the trifecta for me. Deciding to practice something that got me out of my head into my heart, deciding to show up to joy every day. And the way I define joy is as the pure and simple delight in being alive.
Ooh, I love
And then,
that.
yeah, it's great, isn't it? And then sharing it through blogging. I've been a writer my whole life. I've been a professional writer most of my life. Blogging took me out of the rules. It just meant that I could show up, put my hands on the keys, and listen to what needed to come through. That was the beginning of that whole heart-centered practice. And certainly going through One Spirit really kind of both honed it and blew it up. My second book came out in 2018, and it was called The Way of Being Lost. And it was about really deciding that in order to show up as my truest self in life, I had to be willing to lose all the things that we're all told we have to spend our lives becoming,
Mhm.
getting power and prestige and protecting our privilege and all of those things. I had to be willing to throw that all away. So one of the ways I did that was I literally jettisoned my entire life. I live on the road. I'm a nomad. I don't have a home. I literally everything I own fits in a storage unit. Long story short, what heart-centered practice means to me is a willingness to shift out of not only our heads, but our heads that are problem-solving machines. And when we approach life as a problem, when we approach life as a series of problems to be solved, whether we're aware of it or not, we're choosing fear. And by that I mean, if there's a problem, it means there's something we feel that we're lacking. We're lacking love, we're lacking money, we're lacking supply, we're lacking equality, we're lacking any of those things. And to me, and that may look very true on the surface, but what a heart-centered practice does is instead of having this problem and sort of having at it and trying to fix it, what we do is we shift out of our problem-solving heads and into our hearts. And when we do that, we open our hearts to the healing power of love with the big L. And by love with the big L, what I mean is that we are all born with all the things we need. We are all born equal in love. We are all born supplied in love. We are all born whole in love. And when we realign with that power of love, we invite love in to heal from the inside out. And that may all sound like pink paint and, unicorns, but it works
Mhm.
because love is the most powerful healer that there is. And it requires consciously saying no to the lies of fear and lack that, believe me, look very real,
Mhm.
and inviting love in to actually transform us into what we know we are and what we can embody and manifest. And
Is this coming out of a spiritual tradition, like A Course in Miracles, or is it something else?
well, I was brought up in a very metaphysical household, but I was also brought up in a very fear-based household. And it was sometimes very contradictory because I have this very strong metaphysical foundation, a foundation that taught me that divine love always has met and always will meet every human need. That's this foundation. And then all these messages of fear, you don't do this enough, you're not this enough, there's that out there that you should be afraid of, and walk a big circle around that. And so, one of the reasons I wanted to come to One Spirit is I had this theory that if you studied any spiritual or religious tradition in the world, if you peeled back all the ecclesiasticism and all the sort of larded on crap that happens when a true spiritual impetus becomes sort of codified and encapsulated with all the power, prestige, and privilege, um, I really had this strong sense that you would find underneath it the same thing, and what you would find underneath it was the healing power of divine love. And
Mhm.
so going to One Spirit was a profound proof to me that everything's saying the same thing. I would say that my tradition now really is that I am a heart-centered practitioner of love with the big L. I was raised in a Christian-based religion, but I identify with so many other things. But I think in particular, of all the different traditions I've studied, yes, something like A Course in Miracles very much, but Hinduism has been a very important thing for me.
Can you walk us through what the experience inside the workshop would be like?
Well, we begin by beginning to sort of strip into these practices. The first one I do is a very joy-filled practice. It's actually a practice of joy, so that there's this real sense of what it is to, what it feels like to be in your heart. But then after that, it's actually sort of digging underneath, not in kind of, here's the trauma and let's honor the trauma, but witnessing some of the ways in which we judge ourselves, judge others, keep ourselves stuck, walk around with, flypaper on our shoes and wonder why we can't move,
Right.
willingly tie on the cement boots and think, gosh, it's hard to walk, witnessing that, and witnessing it with kindness and without judgment, and then learning how to make that witnessing a tool so that when we see something that happens, we're neither, I mean, of course, we're often alarmed by things. We're often temporarily scared by things. We often are reactive. But if we can learn to make witnessing a primary heart-centered practice, we can shift out of that. We can have the feelings that come up, have the anxieties that sort of sprout, like
Yeah.
weeds. And then we have a heart-centered practice to go into. And then basically, a lot of the practices are about creating ways to invite love in. Some are breathing exercises, some are journaling exercises.
Yeah.
And so the last part is empowering people to begin to create their own heart-centered practices.
And so, aside from the objectives that you have for your workshop, what do you hope that participants take away from the experience?
The most profound thing that I hope people take away from the experience is that we have to be willing to strip away a habit of fear, a pattern of fear-based thinking, a sort of sense that certain things like lack are just endemic to how we live. And that by inviting love into our lives, by being heart-centered practitioners, we're actually doing something really radical. We are radically relying on the power of love. And what I hope people take away is that this is the least pink paint unicorn thing that you can do. That, this is a radical protest against the lie of lack, the belief in fundamental inequalities or the habits of historically based thinking, that when we invite love in, love levels the playing field, love heals what needs to be healed, and it is decidedly unpainful. pink paint. It is so fundamentally powerful, and to rely on love is as radical a thing as you can do. And that's really what I hope people take away, that this isn't some fluff. And it's just, it'll be a joy to be able to share. It's always a joy to be able to bring the power of love into a room and just watch it transform.
Yeah.
Because that's